First contact gone wrong. Sarah Chen's head throbbed as she regained consciousness. The emergency lighting cast a dim red glow across the shattered bridge of the research vessel Horizon's Dream. Warning klaxons had long since fallen silent, leaving only the soft hiss of escaping atmosphere through microfractures in the hull. Her neural implant flickered as it reestablished connection with the ship's failing systems, sending phantom sensations of electricity down her spine. "Status report," she croaked, more from habit than expectation. The ship's AI didn't respond. Of course it wouldn't. The quantum processor core had been the first thing to go when they hit, whatever it was they had hit. Sarah forced herself to focus through the fog of hibernation sickness. They'd been mapping the edges of known space, pushing beyond the safe zones of human exploration. Captain Rodriguez had been excited about some anomalous readings, suggesting they might have found evidence of an ancient jump gate network. Then everything had gone wrong. Sarah pulled herself to her feet, grateful for the partial artificial gravity still functioning in the bridge section. Her fingers traced the familiar patterns of emergency protocols on the manual backup console. Life support was failing across most of the ship. Environmental controls were gone in engineering. And the crew. She closed her eyes, fighting back tears. The status indicators told her everything she needed to know. 27 flatlines, 27 friends and colleagues, gone in an instant when that wave of strange energy had torn through the ship. Only her hibernation pod, activated by emergency protocols, had saved her from joining them. A sudden tremor ran through the deck plates. Sarah stumbled, catching herself on a twisted support beam. Her neural implants sparked with new data. Something massive was approaching the ship. First contact scenarios ran through her mind, but this was all wrong. Humanity wasn't supposed to meet aliens like this, not as a sole survivor on a broken ship. The ship's external cameras were mostly dead, but one still functioned, giving her a grainy view of what approached. Her breath caught in her throat. The vessel was enormous, easily 10 times the size of Horizon's Dream. Its hull was covered in elaborate patterns that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. Definitely not human technology. Sarah's training kicked in. First contact protocols were clear. Attempt peaceful communication. Show no hostile intent. Preserve all possible data for humanity's records. She limped to the communication station, praying it still had enough power to transmit. "This is Navigator Sarah Chen of the Earth research vessel Horizon's Dream." She broadcast on all frequencies. "We have suffered catastrophic damage and casualties. Request immediate assistance." She repeated the message twice more before switching to a simple mathematical sequence, the universal language that any advanced civilization should recognize. The alien ship drew closer. Sarah's implant tingled as it detected unusual energy signatures. They were scanning the Horizon's Dream, probably trying to determine if it was a threat. She kept her hands visible and away from any controls, even though they likely couldn't see her through the hull. A new sensation flooded her mind. Her neural implant was receiving data in patterns she never experienced before. Ancient symbols and equations cascaded through her consciousness, somehow familiar yet utterly alien. The implant wasn't just receiving the data, it was translating it, interfacing with systems that should have been incompatible with human technology. Before she could process what this meant, a beam of shimmering energy enveloped the bridge. Sarah felt a curious tingling sensation, and the world around her began to fade. The last thing she saw was her own body dissolving into patterns of light, while her implant sang with alien code. She rematerialized in a vast chamber that defied human architecture. The walls seemed to breathe, rippling with patterns of bioluminescence. The air held an odd sweetness, and the gravity felt slightly stronger than Earth normal. But what caught her attention were the beings watching her. They stood nearly 3 meters tall, their bodies covered in what appeared to be living metal that flowed and shifted like quicksilver. Multiple sets of arms moved with precise, deliberate grace. Their heads were elongated and smooth, with clusters of crystalline sensors where eyes might be on a human face. Sarah fought down her instinctive fear, reminding herself that if they'd wanted her dead, they could have simply left her on the dying ship. She straightened her back, ignoring the pain from her injuries, and spoke clearly. "I am Navigator Sarah Chen of Earth. Thank you for the rescue." The aliens conferred among themselves in sounds that reminded her of wind through crystal chimes. Her implants sparked again, and suddenly the sounds began to resolve into meaningful patterns. The aliens fell silent, their sensor clusters focusing intently on her. "The human device interfaces with the ancient tongue," one of them said, the words forming directly in her mind rather than being heard with her ears. "This was not thought possible." "Impossible," another agreed. "No species since the precursors has achieved such integration." The first alien approached her, moving with liquid grace. "I am Void Singer Kelthar of the Vorkath Expeditionary Force. You are the only survivor of your vessel." Sarah nodded, fighting back a fresh wave of grief. "Yes, we encountered some kind of anomaly. The ship's systems were overloaded. The rest of the crew..." She couldn't finish the sentence. "We detected the cascade failure from the ancient gateway," Kelthar said. "Your ship attempted to navigate a dormant portal without proper protocols. That you survived at all is remarkable." Ancient gateway. Sarah's scientific curiosity pushed through her grief. "The jump gate network we were investigating. You know of it." "The precursor gates have been silent for millennia," another Vorkath said. "Many have tried to reactivate them. All have failed." The alien's tone carried equal measures of curiosity and suspicion. "Yet your neural technology interfaces with their systems. This requires investigation." Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the chamber's temperature. She'd read enough first contact scenarios to recognize the delicate situation she was in. Humanity's first encounter with an advanced alien civilization, and she was alone, injured, and apparently displaying capabilities that surprised them. "I'm happy to cooperate," she said carefully, "but I need to contact Earth. My people need to know what happened to the Horizon's dream." The Vorkath's surface rippled with patterns she was beginning to recognize as emotion. "That may not be possible, Navigator Chen," Kelthar said. "We are at war. The region between here and your territory is contested, and there are those who would be very interested in your unique abilities." Perfect, Sarah thought grimly. Not only was she humanity's first official contact with alien life, but she'd landed in the middle of an interstellar war, and something about her neural implant, standard technology back home, was drawing far too much attention. She was about to respond when alarms began blaring throughout the ship. The Vorkath moved with sudden urgency, their metallic skin fluctuating rapidly. "Nexari warships approaching," one announced. "They must have detected the gateway activation." Kelthar turned to Sarah. "Navigator Chen, we must quickly decide if you are a potential ally or a security risk. The Nexari Empire cannot be allowed to acquire your capabilities." Sarah squared her shoulders, mind racing. Everything she'd ever known or planned for had changed in the last hour, but one thing was clear. She represented humanity now, and her actions would shape how these aliens viewed her entire species. "I don't understand everything that's happening," she said firmly, "but I'm not interested in being anyone's weapon. Let me help. If my implant can interface with these ancient systems, maybe I can help you escape." The Vorkath consulted briefly, their crystalline language chiming with urgency. Finally, Kelthar gestured with two of his arms. "Come, Navigator Chen. Let us see what a human can do." As Sarah followed them through corridors that seemed to flow and reshape themselves around her, her implant continued to tingle with alien data. She pushed aside her grief and fear, focusing on the immediate problem. She was alive. She had apparently valuable capabilities, and she was humanity's first impression on an interstellar civilization. Time to prove what humans were made of. The ancient network. Sarah stood before a wall of shifting symbols, her neural implant humming with activity as it processed the flood of alien data. The Vorkath ship's navigation center was unlike anything in human spacecraft. No physical controls, just vast sheets of living metal inscribed with flowing patterns that somehow interface directly with the ship's systems. "The Nexari vessels are closing," reported second voice Myrtle, their crystalline sensors pulsing with urgent patterns. "3 heavy cruisers. We cannot outrun them through normal space." Void Singer Kelfar's metallic skin rippled with what Sarah was learning to recognize as concern. "Navigator Chen, if your abilities are genuine, now would be the time to demonstrate them." Sarah took a deep breath, pushing aside her doubts. The past 6 hours had been a crash course in Vorkath technology and the current political situation. The Nexari Empire had been expanding aggressively for centuries, assimilating or destroying any civilization they encountered. The Vorkath were among the few species successfully resisting them, largely thanks to their biotechnology and understanding of the ancient precursor artifacts scattered throughout this sector of space. But understanding wasn't the same as being able to use them. "I'm trying," she said, reaching out to touch the living metal wall. Her implants sparked, forming connections that felt simultaneously natural and deeply alien. "There's so much data. It's like trying to drink from a fire hose." "The Nexari will be in weapons range in 6 minutes," Myrtle announced. "We must either fight or flee." Sarah closed her eyes, letting the information flow through her implant. The ancient symbols began to resolve into meaningful patterns: navigational data, spatial coordinates, energy signatures. Something about them reminded her of the quantum calculations she'd used back on Horizon's Dream, but operating on a scale she'd never imagined possible. "Wait," she said suddenly. "I think I see something. These aren't just coordinates. They're nodes in a network, like a subway map, but in 4 dimensions." Her fingers traced patterns in the air as her implant projected the data into her mind's eye. "The gates aren't individual points. They're all connected." Kelfar moved closer, their crystalline sensors focused intently on her. "The precursor network has been studied for generations. We know the gates are linked, but most are dormant or destroyed." "No," Sarah said with growing excitement. "They're not destroyed. They're just operating on a different frequency. Look." Her implant sent a pulse of energy through the ship's systems, highlighting a complex web of interconnected points in the navigation display. "It's like trying to tune an old radio. You were looking on the wrong wavelength." The bridge crew's metallic skin rippled with various emotions as new data filled their screens. Myrtle made a sound like breaking glass. "Impossible. These pathways, they've been here all along." "Nexari ships launching targeting drones," another crew member reported. Sarah's fingers flew across the living metal, her implant translating her intentions into commands the ancient systems could understand. "Here, there's a dormant gate less than a light minute away. I think I can wake it up." "The energy requirements would be enormous," Kelfar said. "The Nexari are charging weapons." Sarah's implant burned as she forced it to process more data than it was designed for. "The power's already there, in the gate itself. It's just been sleeping." Her head pounded as equations beyond human mathematics flowed through her mind. "I can't explain how I know this, but I do. Trust me." Kelfar was silent for 2 precious seconds before their skin rippled with decision. "Do it." Sarah sent the command through her implant, praying she'd understood the ancient systems correctly. For a moment, nothing happened. Then space itself seemed to twist, a massive structure shimmering into visibility ahead of their ship. It looked like a ring of dark metal bigger than a small moon, covered in the same flowing symbols she'd seen in the navigation center. "By the first song," Myrtle whispered. "A Primera-class gate, fully intact." "Energy spike from the Nexari fleet," the tactical officer reported. "They're firing. The gate's powering up," Sarah said through gritted teeth, her implant feeling like it might burn out at any moment. "We need to get closer. I think I can see where it leads." Kelfar gave commands, and the ship surged forward. Behind them, space lit up with Nexari energy weapons, but they were seconds too late. The gate burst into life, its center filling with what looked like liquid starlight. "Now," Sarah shouted, and the Vorkaf ship plunged into the light. Reality twisted in ways that made Sarah's human mind want to crawl into a corner and hide. Her implant screamed with data overload before suddenly falling silent. When she could see again, they were in a completely different region of space. No Nexeri ships in sight. She sagged against the navigation wall, utterly drained. Did it work? Where are we? The bridge crew worked their controls in silence for several moments before Myrtle spoke. "We are. This can't be correct. We're over 2,000 light-years from our previous position, in a sector of space that was thought to be impossible to reach. The Nexeri have been trying to access this region for decades," Kelfar added. "Their scientists believe something of great value was hidden here by the precursors." They turned their crystalline sensors towards Sarah. It seems they were correct about the value, if not about what form it would take. Sarah tried to process this. "What do you mean?" "Navigator Chen," Kelfar said, their tone carrying new respect. "You have just accomplished something no known species has managed since the disappearance of the precursors themselves. You not only accessed their systems but understood them intuitively. This raises interesting questions about your species." Sarah's implant chose that moment to come back online, flooding her mind with new data from their surroundings. Her eyes widened as she processed what she was seeing. "There's more out here. Dozens of gates, all interconnected. This isn't just a hiding place. It's some kind of hub. A hub that only humans can access." Myrtle noted, their tone unreadable. "The Nexeri will not stop hunting us now. And others will come, once word spreads." Sarah looked at the star field visible through the ship's viewing panels. Somewhere out there was Earth, completely unaware of what she'd just discovered about humanity's capabilities. And somewhere out there were hostile aliens who would now be very, very interested in finding her people. "Then we better make sure we understand what we found," she said firmly, "and figure out how to protect it." Kelfar made a gesture she hadn't seen before. Approval, maybe, or resignation. "Indeed. Though I suspect, Navigator Chen, that we have only begun to uncover the mysteries your presence has awakened." Sarah turned back to the navigation wall, watching the ancient symbols dance across its surface. What was it about humans that let them interface with this technology? And what else might be waiting to be discovered in this unknown region of space? She had a feeling they were about to find out. Trial by fire. 3 days in the unmapped sector had taught Sarah more about alien technology than she'd learned in years of theoretical xenoengineering studies. The Vorkaf ship, she'd finally learned its name, Song of Breaking Dawn, had been methodically exploring the network of ancient gates while trying to stay ahead of pursuing Nexeri forces. "They're persistent," she muttered, watching another long-range scan showing Nexeri scout ships prodding the sector's edges. Her neural implant had adapted to the alien systems, no longer burning with each interface, but the constant stream of data was exhausting. "The Nexeri do not abandon prey easily," Void Singer Kelfar said from behind her. "Especially prey of such potential value." Sarah turned from the living metal displays. "Have you decided if I'm prey or crew yet?" Kelfar's crystalline sensors shifted in what she now recognized as amusement. "Perhaps both. Your abilities are unprecedented, but you remain an unknown quantity. Some of the crew fear what your existence implies about their understanding of the universe." "And what do you think?" Before Kelthar could answer, alarms blared throughout the ship. Myrthel's voice cut through the chaos. "Multiple Nexeri signatures. They've found a way through the barrier." Sarah rushed to her station at the navigation wall. "How?" "The gates shouldn't respond to their technology." "They didn't use the gates," Myrtle reported grimly. "They'd brought a dimensional bore. They're tearing their way in." Kelfar's metallic skin rippled with urgent patterns. "Battle stations. Navigator Chen, plot us an escape route." Sarah's fingers danced across the living metal as her implant processed tactical data. 3 heavy cruisers, and what looks like a dreadnought. They're positioning to cut off access to the nearest gates. She frowned. "Wait." Something's wrong. The network is fluctuating. The dimensional bore, Kelthar said. It's destabilizing the entire region. If they maintain it too long. Energy spike, Mirthal shouted. They're firing. The song of breaking dawn shuddered as Nexeri weapons fire splashed against its shields. Sarah had seen images of Nexeri ships, but the reality was far more intimidating. Where Vorkath vessels were organic curves and flowing metal, Nexeri craft were all sharp angles and brutal efficiency, bristling with weapons. Shields at 60%, the tactical officer reported. Their targeting systems are adapting to our evasion patterns. Sarah's implant sparked with sudden insight as she processed the sensor data. The bore isn't just letting them in. They're using it to amplify their weapons. The dimensional distortion is focusing their energy beams. Can we close it? Kelthar demanded. Sarah's mind raced through possibilities as her implant interfaced with the ancient systems. Maybe, but not from here. We'd need to get closer to the bore itself. That would place us directly in their firing solution. Yes, Sarah met Kelthar's crystalline gaze. But I have an idea. It's either brilliant or suicidal. Mirthal made a sound like chiming laughter. She's learning our ways quickly. Another blast rocked the ship. Shields at 40%. Kelthar's skin rippled with decision patterns. Speak quickly, navigator. The gates don't just connect points in space, Sarah explained, her fingers tracing patterns in the data streams. They manipulate space itself. If I can access the right protocols, we might be able to turn their bore against them. Theoretical physics in the middle of combat, Mirthal noted. How refreshingly human. Better than certain death, Sarah said, already sending commands through her implant. Helm, can you get us within 5,000 kilometers of the bore? The helm officer's skin flickered with determination. We'll get you there, once. What followed was the most harrowing flight of Sarah's life. The song of breaking dawn dove and twisted through space as energy beams carved burning lines around them. Her implant felt like it was on fire again, as she forced it to process calculations that would have taken a supercomputer hours to solve. Shields critical. Almost there, Sarah said through gritted teeth. The dimensional bore loomed ahead, a twisted wound in reality itself. Kelthar, I need all available power routed through the ancient interfaces. You'll burn out half our systems. Better than all of them. Her implant connected with the gate network, drawing on power that had laid dormant for millennia. Now, reality twisted. The bore's energy seemed to fold in on itself, creating a cascade of spatial distortions. The nearest Nexeri cruiser tried to pull away but was caught in the effect, its hull crumpling as space itself contracted around it. By the first song, someone whispered. The dimensional bore collapsed with a silent flash that nonetheless sent tremors through Sarah's implant. When her vision cleared, the Nexeri fleet was in chaos. One cruiser was destroyed, another heavily damaged, and even the dreadnought showed signs of structural stress. Get us out of here, Kelthar commanded, before they recover. The song of breaking dawn limped toward the nearest gate, its systems strained but intact. Sarah felt like she'd run a marathon while solving advanced mathematics problems, but a fierce pride burned in her chest. She'd proven what a human could do, a fascinating tactic. Kelthar said once they were safely through the gate, using their own dimensional manipulation against them. Not even the Vorkath would have attempted such a thing. Humans have a saying, Sarah said, allowing herself to sink into a rest position. Sometimes the crazy plans are the only ones that work. Perhaps. Kelthar's sensors focused on her intently, but I suspect there is more to it than that. The ease with which you grasp these ancient systems, it suggests a connection we do not yet understand. Sarah nodded slowly. The way the implant interfaces with precursor tech, it shouldn't be possible. Human neural technology was developed independently. Unless it wasn't. Mirthal joined them, their crystalline voice thoughtful. The Nexeri will be even more interested now. They believe the precursors held the key to ultimate power in this galaxy. If humans have some inherent connection to their technology, then Earth is in danger. Sarah finished. We need to find answers before the next HFY my people. Agreed. Kelthar made a gesture that encompassed the entire bridge. You have proven yourself in battle, Navigator Chen. Whatever secrets lie in your species' past, the Vorkath stand ready to help uncover them. Sarah turned back to the navigation wall, watching the ancient symbols dance across its surface. They'd won this battle, but she knew it was only the beginning. Somewhere in this mysterious sector of space were answers about humanity's true origins, answers that could either save or doom her entire species. The real trial was just beginning. The hidden truth. The ancient facility stretched before them, a vast structure of impossible geometries floating in the void. After 2 weeks of following increasingly complex gate paths, the song of breaking dawn had finally reached what Sarah's implant identified as a precursor research station. The station's surface rippled with the same living metal technology as the gates, but on a scale that made Sarah's mind struggle to comprehend its true size. No signs of Nexari pursuit, Murphy reported. The spatial distortions we created seem to have thrown them off our trail. For now. Good. Kelthar said. We may finally have time to find answers. Their crystalline sensors turned to Sarah. Are you ready, Navigator? Sarah nodded, though her heart was pounding. Her implant had been increasingly active as they approached the station, flooding her mind with fragments of data that felt like half-remembered dreams. The station's systems are already recognizing my presence. It's welcoming me. The docking procedure was surprisingly smooth, as if the ancient facility had been waiting for them. Sarah led the exploration team through corridors that seemed to reshape themselves as they passed, responding to her neural signatures. The Vorkath crew moved with practiced efficiency, but she could sense their unease at how easily she interfaced with the station. This architecture, one of the science officers noted, it's unlike any other precursor facility we studied. The integration of biological and technological components is far more advanced. It's more than that, Sarah said, following the pull of her implant. This place feels familiar, like I've been here before, even though that's impossible. They reached what appeared to be a central chamber. The walls were covered in flowing symbols that made Sarah's implant hum with recognition. As she approached, the symbols began to coalesce into coherent patterns. This is some kind of research log, she said, her fingers tracing the living metal. The precursors, they were looking for something, a way to ensure their legacy would survive. Survive what? Kelthar asked. Before Sarah could answer, her implant surged with new data. The chamber came alive around them, filling with holographic displays that showed star systems, genetic sequences, and complex mathematical formulae. At the center, an image formed, a double helix that Sarah recognized instantly. That's human DNA, she whispered, but it's been modified, enhanced. The science officer's metallic skin rippled with shock. These markers, they're precursor genetic sequences. Sarah's mind raced as her implant processed the information flooding through it. They knew they were dying out. Some kind of genetic degradation they couldn't stop. So they seeded worlds with modified versions of their own genetic code, hoping to create species that could carry on their work. And humanity was one such experiment. Murphy asked. Not just one experiment, Sarah said, her voice shaking slightly. We were the successful one. The only species that retained enough of their genetic markers to interface with their technology naturally. That's why the neural implants work. They're just amplifying an ability that was already there. Kelthar moved closer to examine the displays. This explains much. The Nexari have long believed that the precursors left behind the key to their power. They never imagined it would be encoded in the very genes of another species. There's more, Sarah said, her implant burning as it decoded deeper layers of data. The precursors didn't just want successors. They were afraid of something. Something they discovered out in the dark between galaxies. They needed a species that could understand their technology, continue their research, and be ready when alarms blared through the station. Myrthel's crystalline voice cut through the noise. Multiple Nexari signatures. They've found us. Sarah's blood ran cold as tactical displays sprang to life around them. That's not possible. We covered our trail. They didn't follow us, Kelthar said grimly. They followed the station's power signature when it activated for you, and they've brought their entire battle fleet. The holographic displays showed dozens of Nexari ships emerging from dimensional bores all around the station. Leading them was a vessel that dwarfed even the dreadnought they'd encountered before. A massive flagship bristling with weapons that could reduce the ancient facility to atoms. They cannot be allowed to obtain this knowledge, Kelthar declared. If they learn the truth about humanity's connection to the precursors, they'll use it to find Earth. Sarah finished. To either enslave or destroy humanity before we can fully realize our potential. Her mind raced through possibilities as her implant processed station schematics. We need to destroy the facility. The station's power core is massive. The science officer protested. Even if we overload it, the Nexari could still recover data from the wreckage. Sarah's implant sparked with sudden inspiration as she interfaced more deeply with the station's systems. Maybe we don't need to destroy it. Maybe we can. She paused, the magnitude of what she was considering hitting her. Maybe we can take it with us. Impossible, Myrtle said. The power requirements alone. The station isn't just a research facility, Sarah explained, her fingers dancing across control surfaces as ancient systems responded to her commands. It's also a gate, a massive, mobile gate, one that can create its own dimensional passages. Kelthar's sensors pulsed with surprise. You're suggesting we transport the entire station through a gate of its own making? Yes. Sarah met their crystalline gaze. But I'll need help. The Vorkat's biotechnology, combined with the station's systems, we might be able to generate enough power for one jump, far beyond the Nexari's reach. And if we fail, then we destroy everything, she said firmly. But we have to try. This isn't just about protecting Earth anymore. The precursors were preparing for something terrible. Humanity needs time to understand our heritage, to be ready when whatever they feared finally arrives. The station shuddered as the first Nexari weapons impacted its shields. Kelthar was silent for a long moment before their skin rippled with decision patterns. Tell us what you need, Navigator Chen. Let us see if your human intuition can perform one more miracle. Humanity's stand. The ancient station's corridors hummed with power as Sarah's implant interfaced with systems that hadn't been fully active for millennia. Vorkath crew members worked frantically to integrate their ship's biotechnology with the station's power grid, following her instructions as she translated precursor specifications in real time. Nexari forces have breached the outer defense grid, Myrtle reported. Their boarding parties will reach us in minutes. The power integration is at 60%, the science officer added. We need at least 85 for a successful jump. Sarah's fingers flew across control surfaces as she processed multiple data streams through her implant. The station's systems were responding to her presence more strongly now, as if awakening from a long sleep. But they were racing against time. Navigator Chen, Kelthar's voice carried unusual urgency. The Nexari flagship is moving into position. They're charging their main weapon. Sarah accessed the tactical displays. The massive Nexari vessel was indeed preparing to fire, a weapon that could tear through the station's weakened shields. But something about its energy signature triggered a response in her implant. Wait, she said, understanding flooding through her. The Nexari weapons, they're based on corrupted precursor technology. They don't fully understand how it works, but they've twisted it to serve their purposes. Her fingers traced new patterns across the living metal controls. Maybe we can use that. Explain quickly, Kelthar said as another impact rocked the station. The station's gate function doesn't just create dimensional passages, Sarah said, her implant burning as it processed calculations beyond human mathematics. It manipulates space-time itself, if we can match the frequency of their weapon when it fires. You want to use their attack as a power source. The science officer's metallic skin rippled with disbelief. The energy transfer alone could tear the station apart. Probably would, Sarah agreed, if we tried to contain it. But what if we don't? What if we let it flow through the station's systems, using their own power to amplify our jump? Boarding parties on multiple levels. Kelthar's crystalline sensors pulsed with rapid calculations. The risk is better than certain death, Sarah finished. Trust me. Trust what the precursors saw in humanity. Another impact shook the station. Kelthar's skin rippled with decision patterns. Do it. Sarah's hands moved with certainty as she reconfigured the station's systems. Her implant felt like it was about to overload, but she pushed through the pain. Around them, the living metal walls pulsed with building energy. Nexari flagship preparing to fire. Ready, Sarah said, her implant synchronizing with the station's core systems. When their weapon hits, channel everything through the main grid. Don't try to control it. Let it flow. The next few moments seemed to stretch into infinity. Sarah saw the Nexari weapon fire, a lance of corrupted precursor energy that could shatter worlds. But instead of resistance, the station opened itself to the attack. Power surged through systems that had waited eons for this moment. Sarah felt it all through her implant. The station's awakening, the merge of energies, the beginning of a jump that would dwarf any gate transition ever attempted. At the last moment, she understood what the precursors had really created. They weren't just looking for successors, she gasped as reality began to twist around them. They were looking for children who could surpass them. Space itself seemed to fold, taking the station and everyone in it through dimensions that human minds were never meant to perceive. Sarah's implant screamed with data before falling silent, and darkness took her. She awoke to the soft chiming of Vorkath voices. Her implant sparked weakly as it rebooted, giving her fragments of sensor data. They were somewhere else, somewhere very far from where they'd started. Did it work? She managed to ask. Beyond all expectations, Kelthar said, helping her to stand. We are approximately 50,000 light-years from our previous position, in a sector of space that matches coordinates found in the precursor database, the Nexari. Left far behind, though I suspect they will not stop searching. Kelthar's sensors pulsed with what she now recognized as respect. But you've bought your people time. Time to understand their heritage, to prepare for whatever the precursors feared. Sarah moved to a viewport, looking out at unfamiliar stars. Her implant was already beginning to interface with the station's systems again, showing her wonders that humans had never dreamed of. We'll need help, she said. Earth needs to know what's out here, what we're capable of. And the Vorkath will stand with humanity, Kelthar finished. What you've shown us, your courage, your intuition, your ability to see solutions where we saw only problems, it proves that the precursors chose well. Humanity may be young, but you have potential that even they might not have imagined. Sarah smiled, thinking of home, of all that lay ahead. The station hummed around her, its systems ready to share their secrets with the species that had been prepared to receive them. The Nexari would come again, and beyond them lurked whatever threat the precursors had feared. But humanity wouldn't face these challenges alone, and they would be ready. Well then, she said, her implant already showing her new possibilities, new discoveries waiting to be made. Let's see what else humans can do.